Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer. He's on the East Coast. And we are looking at Sunday NBA playoffs as they roll along with 4 more games this weekend. We are recording this a little bit early here on Saturday to get ahead of this stuff with you guys. Even got a game that we might be looking at for Monday already, so we can make sure that we get the really nice opening lines that we got here. So plenty of value to look at in this video. Also got play of props up as we're doing each and every day now moving forward through this postseason. So subscribe to that page and continue to follow along. Also head to thelines.com. Use everything we have up on the site right now as we keep churning out that good content for this NBA postseason. Hey, let's go ahead and jump into your first best bet for the day here on Sunday.
Yes, as we record on Saturday, and the Thunder opening -1 against the Pelicans, against a team they had dominated the previous game, was just like very head scratching. And I feel like the exact same way here with the Wolves -1 to complete the sweep in Phoenix. There's nothing that we saw from the Phoenix Suns that would indicate that they can hang with this team. Like, I mean, it's just. The depth was already an issue, and Grayson Allen going out, final nail in the coffin. They have Agreed. Frank Vogel has no cards to play whatsoever. The big three, so to speak, has no cohesion. I mean, what do you want to say? Like Royce O'Neal was -23 as a starter. Nurk could not stay on the floor, and then the Wolves just get a parade into the paint: 56-36 in paint points, 50-28 rebound advantage. Coming into that game, I believe Booker and KD had 4 baskets in the restricted area the first 2 games entirely. So, I mean, you're just depending on insane shot making against a team that is just absolutely stacked on the wing in terms of defenders. I mean, it's the number 1 defense in the league, and then they have Rudy at the back. And I mean, KD, whether it's the fact that he's aging out of this or he played the more minutes than he's ever played, he can't carry it like he could with Brooklyn a couple of years ago. It's just another sad chapter in the KD odyssey. The post Golden State odyssey is, we might be looking for another team after this one. I mean, Phoenix, like from a franchise standpoint, where do they go now? But it's an interesting like team building standpoint because the Wolves with only one true star, I guess, and then they have these role players like Alexander Walker, who they pull off the scrap heap, and just like, and Kyle Anderson and Monty Morris, and they can actually like go 9-10 deep in this series and with guys you would trust. And who are the Suns pulling out? Like Bol. There was a little bit of life from them in the first couple quarters, right? As we went back to Phoenix, we were wondering, are they going to be able to get the offense on track? But only for a minute. And in the second half in this entire series now, I mean, the Wolves are plus 26 net. I believe it's the same plus 26 when Beal, Booker, and KD are all on the floor together. That's the second best net rating in the second half. Second best true shooting behind Philly. Second best rebounding rate behind Denver. They're scoring 12 points off turnovers in those second halves, allowing just 16 paint points. Like I'm saying, like Suns can't get anything inside, and shooting 52-41%. It's just completely grinding down this team with their superior depth, superior athleticism, and there's a mix now, I guess, of veterans to young guns in terms of like Ant is just out there having fun, like not feeling any pressure in the world, right? Just like embracing this moment. And then there's guys who, like Conley and Gobert, who have been there and just want to get to the next step. And I just don't think the Suns have any hunger, any desire to extend the series and keep playing. So I really just don't expect much of a fight. -1.5 is crazy small in terms of the spread. Like this has got to be at least like 5-6 points, but we'll take it. Take it early.
Yeah, I mean, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? Is like there's no explanation against it. To be honest with you, like you would have to just rely on the Suns pulling out like wild shooting numbers like they did against the Nuggets when they tried to stay alive by winning 2 in a row, and they just show that that's not what they're going to be able to do moving forward. The perimeter defense, like that's the interesting thing. The only thing I'll really add is like Rudy Gobert as a center. We always gave him crap as the dude that couldn't stay on the floor during the playoffs. Look at his perimeter defense when he was playing on Utah. Donovan Mitchell, right? Like there was nothing up top. You're Bogey, I guess, right? There was no. I mean, Bogey shut down LeBron for one playoff series, but no, you know, I'm being serious here. Like this is a team with just as good a perimeter defense as they now have down low. to complement this dude. Like you were kind of mentioning him in the back line. So I don't know where Phoenix pulls out a victory unless they're shooting like 54% from three. They're not even really taking the threes. Like KD's not really taking threes anymore. He's certainly not making them. Booker has just been completely put into clamps, honestly, and he's the attitude is just a lot of head hanging. If Bradley Beal didn't have 28 points in that last game, it could have been worse. You got Ant X factoring the crowd. It's not good. And the vibes are high in Minnesota, and this team's been on this trajectory. So like, let's at least like give them credit rather than trying to poo poo everyone around them. Like they brought it, and they're going to continue to do so. I think they're plenty happy to run away with a sweep here, and like I don't see a letdown game for them at all. But let me move on to the Clippers because I also like this is not the Wolves. The trajectory is not the same, but I'm still going to take the Clips to cover in this one. I think you get a few more minutes from Kawhi. It's come out that he was on the minutes restriction of 24 in this last game with the swelling in the knee. I can't like project that with any like fair certainty, but I at this point, like with one more day off and the perspective of going down 3-1 in the series, I think that you still get the 30 minutes from Kawhi in this one. And he's really, I mean, I think with him being hobbled, like at the very least, he's important for a down low presence that doesn't exist outside of Zubac on this team. And we've seen that with the rebounds from him, where he's actually helped them rebound. Dallas just had one quarter in this last game where they won by 18 points. And that was the game right there in the second quarter. And a huge part of that was the shooting 54% from three, shooting 67% or so, or 64% rather from deep. Like that was just an anomaly quarter that Luka came back. It was kind of like, oh no, Luka hurt his ankle in the first quarter. He came back. He's like, no, let me show you how good I am. And then just started raining threes alongside a couple other Mavs. And there, Bob's your uncle. You're down by 13 at the half. But then they came back in the third quarter, very even. Like most of these quarters have been very even. And when there's no like, and even for the Mavs, like they just got pounded in the first half of that game one, and that was the reason that game wasn't that close. But then in game two, I think you see a little bit more of that going to be happening here as well. Where in game two, things were a little bit more even. Like neither team had an awful shooting game the way that the Clippers did for the majority of, the Mavs had for the majority of game one. And then here in game three, like the Clips, they still went 4 for 9 in that second quarter from deep, but they were 7 for 20 from the field. And really the free throws, I think, need to come back to the mean as well for both these teams. Like they were both basically the same team in terms of their free throw attempt rate. They both ranked like right next to each other, 22 a game for each of them. Now we're seeing the Mavs with 26 and the Clips with just 19. That's also partly the Kawhi Leonard stuff. But if I'm Russ Westbrook, I hope I'm coming back with a vengeance for this game too, as someone who can actually attack the rim for them. And if not finish at the rim, create a few more assists down low, because the points in the paint for the Mavs have also been a lot higher throughout the series. And one, in part because of Kawhi, and two, honestly, the only person who's going to the paint besides Zubac for this team when Kawhi's off the floor has been Russ. And then in game three was just pulling up all over the place, pulling up from the corners, settling for jump shots, 0 for 7 before he got frustrated and tried to punch PJ Washington in the chest. Like it was just all bad. And I would expect him to have a bounce back game himself, which should really help keep this within 6 points. I don't have the stones to bet on the Clippers money line by any means, especially when it comes to fourth quarter Luka. But I think they keep it closer by just not allowing a quarter to get completely out of control and lose by nearly 20 points like they did in the second quarter of this last game. And that's really what I'm banking on more than anything, is just like, this game two, I think, was the non-outlier. Games 1 and 3 were an outlier in just opposite ways. And in game two, we saw that like with Kawhi in there for more than the 24 minutes he played in game three, that this is like basically an even matchup. And so 6 points, getting over that like 5 points or so, for me, I feel good taking that for a Clippers team to have a bit of a turnaround, which, like I said, isn't even that big of a turnaround. It's just able the second quarter from game three and you're okay.
Yeah, no, I think this is the right look for sure, because the game is the series is trending under so hard, so freaking hot, dude. 209.5 is kind of high in general, and I think the same logic applies to saying Dallas under 107.5. Like Dallas has barely they got over 101. They got 101 last game, and it took that outlier second quarter. Otherwise, they're not like sniffing 100, because Ty Lue, whatever voodoo he's doing to limit this offense that Luka Doncic is running, is like, kudos to him. I mean, and Dallas just daring the supporting cast to hit shots, and they're not up to it really. So I mean, and with Kawhi, I mean, apparently he's not healthy. Like I don't know. Yeah. He looked okay in the first game back, like he was barely moving in that last one. So there's just not going to be a lot of points here, but there will be a lot of defense, a lot of junk junk thrown at Dallas and probably keep it close. So, but let's go over in Philly, and the total's up to 209. I kind of like the Sixers team total more. It's 106.5, but I mean, the game total is still pretty low. I mean, I guess the books are baking in some regression after both teams just shot crazy well in the third quarter. That was your outlier quarter. 43 points for the Sixers in that quarter. Otherwise, it was just, your standard, like, teams are putting up 27, 28 each quarter. These teams are, I mean, because Embiid is hitting every shot and also apparently knocked Mitch Robinson out of that game. And now he just gets to work against Hartenstein, and he's not going to score 50, but he's going to get to the line pretty damn consistently. And he can't guard on the other end. And so Brunson, finally able to exploit that with the right, pushing the right buttons, was just going off. New York winning the paint points battle by 16. And just so we cruised way over in game 3, even with some regression. I mean, over 209 is not a lot to think about. I mean, remember, this is the 76ers averaged 121 and a half when Embiid was healthy at home. Pre All-Star break in general, their games averaged 232. They averaged 236 when they're playing on 2 days rest in general. And the free throw parade with Embiid is a big deal. Embiid and Brunson are the number 1 and 2 free throw rate guys in the playoffs so far, and I don't expect much of that to change either. I mean, Tobias Harris, can he really be this bad all series? I mean, maybe he can. I'll give him credit. But Kelly O is getting more run, more shots at his expense. Campaign now filling in the Buddy Hield minutes, and he's at least willing to let it fly. And he's been knocking them down. So, and we talked about this last game when we were taking the over, is that the Knicks, they play faster, score more, allow more on the road. I mean, we're talking 8 more points, allowing 5 more points on the road post All-Star break. And if you look without Mitch Rob on the season, they have a 115 defensive rating on the road. And they ain't playing Joel Embiid every night, who now they only have one guy to throw on him. If Hartenstein gets into foul trouble, it's look out. Philly might run away with this.
Yeah. Yeah, Philly might. I mean, the Knicks shooting needs to come along. That's really what I got. The Knicks shooting needs to come along, and I'm talking about for the Knicks covering. I like the over for sure. We're in full agreement on this one. I was willing to just say, like, let me add to what you're saying rather than even come up with a second pick for Sunday because of how much I like this, and I like it because as slow as it is, free throws. To your point. Philly has either been a team that just allows you to get right to the rim when Joel is not on the floor, or they're going to allow you to get to the free throw line when he is on the floor and when he's out, to be honest. But even when he is, they're still giving up that high free throw rate. And that's a huge part of it. It's just easy buckets. Where are they coming from? The Knicks have found easy buckets as well when they haven't been hitting threes at points in various points in this series. And so they've got outs is my main point. Like, there's never going to be a moment in time where I'm like, oh no, what do they do next for either team? It's either, like, nobody's going to be able to handle Joel, which, by the way, his 3-point shooting as also a pretty big helpful factor in this one. Like, Joel taking threes does tend to speed up the game. You're either getting that shot in, or you're getting the last line of defense being Joel, who needs to get back on a potential Knicks transition bucket. And you've seen that the Knicks get a good amount of transition points and fast break points and be very efficient when they're doing it as well. So everything like you're saying, I agree with. And I like how many outs each team has to be able to score when they need to and trump the defense. But I don't think Tobias Harris is going to be the one who gets very helpful. Kelly O, to your point, I think is going to keep having bigger games as we move forward in this series. But I'm going to take a look here that you brought to my attention, which was a Monday game for this Thunder squad to go ahead and continue the beatdown that they've administered in the last 2 games to this Pelicans team. And now it's 3-0, as we saw from Friday's victory. And it's opening at 4.5 on Monday. And it was just 1.5. And that was a 20-point spread there that it ended with. So I'm looking at 4.5 and I'm still going, well, it's under 5. Can see this getting bet up. So happy to bring this to the people early, because I don't know, speaking of outs for the Knicks and 76ers, what are the outs for Willie Green here? Like, the only ace in the hole would be if Zion was coming back, and he ain't walking through those doors with a healthy, lower body. Let's just put it that way right now. So, in game 3, every starter for this team was -10 or worse. We finally saw Joe Val run off the floor as he wasn't really able to provide much on the offensive rebounding side of things. And that's the only real value that he brought to this team in this series, because he's not a good matchup for any part of this series, with Chet Holmgren just raining down threes, staying at the top of the key and really making things difficult. Guys driving to the rim are just getting what they want for this team. That's really a huge part of what I was looking at for this game a minute ago, was like, what are the drives like? Because if the Pellies don't get to the rim at all, they don't have any outs because they're not getting to the free throw line. And they've got one of the better sort of, wing defenses in the league, especially above the break. That's really what is just as, if not more important than anything for this team, is like, they're just taking away everything above the break for Trey Murphy, for CJ McCollum. I mean, CJ's 2 for 8, forcing in the last game, forcing those threes up. Trey Murphy was 2 for 5, but Trey Murphy at his best is shooting 8 to 10 threes, and he's not even able to get any good looks at that because they know who to take away on this team, and it's all above the break, and that's where this defense is incredibly strong, giving up like the 3rd fewest points per game above the break. They're also giving up like the 4th lowest field goal percentage, right around the rim inside of 5 feet. So they're just really protecting the 2 parts of the court that, most teams, obviously that's like the 2 most valuable places on the floor, to be honest. And they're just taking away everything that this Pelicans team could hope to get, is what their preference is, right? And like I was saying, the last thing here is the drives. Like, it's just so different when the Thunder are driving. They've got the most drives in the playoffs of any team. They've got the most points off of drives. This Pelicans team, when they're actually driving to the basket, which they've tried to do pretty frequently to give them some credit, they just have the like 3rd worst field goal percentage of anybody in the playoffs left, who's actually on their drives to the rim, right? 42% on the field goal percentage on drives to the basket. And like, that's usually going to be closer to 57-60% when you're getting shots right inside of like 10 to 5 feet. It's obviously going to be a higher field goal percentage than normal, and theirs is just bad. And the 3-point shooting is the same thing. So like that's what this NBA is. It's dunks and threes to this point. I mean, the mid-range is helpful, but even Brandon Ingram just is I don't know if he's a number one, man. Like, when he's got dudes around him, yes, he can pass out of it, but like, he hasn't been able to find guys when they do bring the double team to him. And at this point, like, they're just happy to let J-Dub just kind of go on him and be like, here's one of the best defenders in the league, and Jalen Williams without a Y. So go ahead and Brandon Ingram, try to beat us 1-on-1, but we're going to take away everything around you if you do try to pass out of it. We're happy to watch mid-range shot after mid-range shot.
Yeah, I mean, it's Dort first on Ingram,
Yeah.
right? Just put him in the torture chamber. And then they have J-Dub just in reserve because, Ingram's not a number 1. He's supposed to be number 2 on this team. Their number 1's hurt. And CJ McCollum long in the tooth at this point. I mean, it's just like the larger perspective here is like, what the books are doing is like basing history on like home team bounce back, home team show pride, all this stuff that like just is starting to not apply as much in today's NBA because it's so like film study oriented. It's so X's and O's. It's just like, look, if we have the superior pieces to put around and to put on the floor and to exploit your weaknesses and make Herb Jones shoot corner threes and like cut off the above the break Trey Murphy threes, exactly everything you're saying. Like, the Thunder have everything dialed in. They know exactly what they need to do, and they're not going to get flustered by a little bit of crowd noise. They were flustered. They had a little bit of nerves in game 1. Other than that, they've just completely taken control of this series. It's time to move on to the second round.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, I think that, just to finish your point, like, Cavs and Magic, for instance, right, 2-2 right now, I would say that the talent disparity isn't as great as we might have thought between these two teams. Like, at one point when people were picking the Cavs and we saw them wipe the floor with the Magic in the first 2 games, that was actually an anomaly for the Magic, who probably have a little bit more talent than we thought. The talent disparity between OKC and also the head coaching disparity between OKC and this I love Willie Green, but like, Dagnall's coach of the year for a reason. He's played this team like a fiddle in terms of his rotations and everything. So love this Thunder team, man. Been loving them. We're going to continue to love them. We'll see how they do next round once they get past this Pelly squad. And that's all the time that we have for you in best bets as we dismiss the Pelicans here. But definitely want to continue to follow along and check out the play of props. Also going to be bringing you that each and every day moving forward throughout these playoffs. So until we see you next, happy betting.